Welcome to the Marriage Puzzle Podcast with Julie and Thomas Hobby. We are marriage coaches who help couples with pain points about money, intimacy, and communication go from being overwhelmed to being secure in their marriage.
If this is your first time listening to us, thanks for checking out our podcast. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and a review. Let's dive into this episode.
Hey guys, it's episode 53, and we're going to be talking about building a marriage foundation. So whether you've been married for 1 year, 5 years, 15 years, 50 years, what kind of foundation do you have, or do you need to build one? And we're in this interesting season of life. If you've been following our journey, we just had our fourth child, but 15 weeks early. So he's in the NICU and going to be there for many months as his lungs develop. And we feel like we wouldn't be able to get through seasons like this if it weren't for the foundation that we built and even work on maintaining in our marriage.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that, you made it sound so easy, like that we did it so easily, and we definitely didn't. I mean, it definitely took a long time, and it was hard to do. It was hard work along the way. But it was worth it for a moment like this, a situation like this, when we're faced with such adversity right now in our family life, and it would be easy to just throw in the towel. I mean, it would be difficult emotionally and everything, but, it would be a lot easier to just be like, nope, I'm done. But we've already put in all this hard work, so why would we give up on everything that we've done so far just because this time is hard? This next few months is going to be tough. And
we're just talking about this season of life that we're in, but on previous episodes, we share a lot of other stories. It's why our brand is Marriage Puzzle, and part of that is kind of turning over different puzzle pieces that you weren't expecting in your marriage and in life. So that could be, a job change, a job loss, bankruptcy, a move, or, a secret revealed in your marriage that you weren't, expecting to navigate.
It could just be the death of a family member or, something along the lines of that. Somebody gets into trouble, or teenage child decides to drop out of college, and that throws you guys for. I mean, it could be so many different things that could have an impact on your marriage. One, if you let it, but two, if you haven't put in that work on the front end.
Yeah, so we want to talk about building a foundation before a storm, so that you're able to weather the storms that come in life.
Yep.
And so we're going to be talking about our NICU journey. That kind of prompted this episode, but you're right. You said it hasn't been easy. We didn't commit to building a foundation the day we got married. Honestly, we were in the honeymoon stage and just having fun, and we had a good marriage. I think it was around like the 7-year mark that then there were some storms that we weathered that we could choose to lean in and work on that foundation to even go from good to better in our marriage, or we could say, this is hard, I'm out.
Right.
And we mentioned that last week of like some people, or the statistics are like people wait 6 years.
Yeah.
And something, hard before they get help. I think that, that's where you can kind of ride this, everything's fine, life is good, I don't need to work on this. And then you can get blindsided. And so in this NICU.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add a little caveat. Like you said, we're going to be talking about some stories from this NICU journey for us. But if you're listening, just fill in your blank on this. Like fill in your hard that you're going through or that you have gone through so that it relates to you. Because obviously we can't tell a story about every possible scenario. We're just talking about what's relevant in our life, and we're going to try to give you some principles that we think can apply in any hard season of your life. So just make sure you fill in the blank in your mind as to what you might be going through right now.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Because I was just, maybe because we're marriage coaches, we kind of can observe couples and just from the different experiences and things that we've seen and heard, just we've been in this NICU journey now for just over 3 weeks, and we're starting to either observe families or meet other couples who are kind of in the same situation. And in just 3 weeks, there's 3 different couples that I've kind of want to speak to. I can't really talk too much about them from, privacy standpoint, but there's a couple that have been in the NICU since April. So it's July now, and they're still there maybe another 2 months, and with their son. And I love this couple. Like, here I am kind of new to the NICU with our baby Jordan as a micro preemie on the NICU floor that we're on. And this couple has been so positive and encouraging me, through the different stages of what we're about to walk through, because they've walked through it. But seeing the dynamic of their marriage, like, I'm like, they're going to make it. Like, this is their first child, but, they didn't let this dynamic put a wedge in their marriage, because we're in Florida, and they were on vacation here when they had their
live
son.
Out of state.
Yes, so they live out of state. All their family and friends are many states away.
Yeah.
And they just, when they share their story, I'm just thinking, like, you guys could be so depressed, and you could be fighting, or you could be separated physically, but also, for them. And they are both there by them, by them sides of each other, and for their son, working remotely. And they definitely have a foundation in their marriage that this is only making them stronger.
Right.
And then I've seen another couple that lives in Florida, but still a few hours away from the NICU that we're at. So they had to be transferred. So, mom's staying in the Ronald McDonald House, dad's staying at home, and commuting back and forth for work and stuff. And I don't know them well enough, but I'm praying that they make it.
Right.
Like, that's another extreme situation that they're navigating now in their marriage, to be physically apart and kind of live in 2 different worlds, trying to support each other. And so you got a couple that we know is going to make it. You got a couple that's like, oh, I hope they're going to make it. And then the last couple we've observed, not saying that they're not going to make it, but just right off the bat, we're like, they don't have that foundation, because I think, again, we don't know all the information of the baby's coming in the NICU, but we spent a lot of time there, so you just see who comes and goes. And I think it was more of a full-term baby.
Mm-hmm.
And my heart goes out to full-term babies that end up in the NICU, because you don't expect that. Right. That's probably an even bigger surprise, where when my water broke at 19 weeks, Jordan wasn't born till 25 weeks gestation. I had time to process. I knew I was going to have an early baby, and we were going to be in the NICU.
Right.
But this couple, were probably really shocked by that. And they were only there like 2 or 3 days, I think, before they got to take the baby home. Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, God willing, they got to take the baby home, right? I mean, we don't know exactly, but they disappeared. Almost knocked over my cup. But talking with my hands, and I almost knocked over my cup. Sorry. But yeah, like, God willing, that was the case. They disappeared, and we believe that that's what happened.
Well, I know it was a full-term baby because you could hear it cry.
Right.
Where it's funny, you hear a baby crying, you're like, that's a big baby. When you have a micro preemie and they're on a ventilator, they their vocal cords are blocked. So we haven't heard Jordan cry yet, and we haven't heard like any of his little friends on the floor. So that's where I was like, I'm hoping that they went home, because it was a full-term baby that just needed to be monitored for a couple days.
Right.
But our point in observing this couple is, like I said, benefit of the doubt is they were not expecting that to be their journey, but just their demeanor was really sad and depressed, and I just felt for them. And just even how they walked the halls and stuff, I'm like, I just want them to support each other more in this.
And let's not discount the fear in this situation. Like you said, especially for people who have full-term babies, you think once the labor's done, your baby's fine, you're ready to go home. But then there can be these scenarios where this happens. And I don't want to discount the fear they may have been dealing with and walking through, because it's scary when, your child's laying there. And the NICU is such a nice sounding term, but neonatal intensive care unit is, that's a really hard pill to swallow, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you hear an adult in ICU and you're like, oh my goodness.
Right,
but
what's wrong?
A baby, you're like, oh, they'll grow.
Right, yeah.
Like, no, they're still in ICU.
It's still scary, and there's still risks involved in any scenario. And so, I don't want to discount the fear that really any of these couples may be going through. But this couple that we're talking about, this third couple with the full-term baby, we feel like there was just a different, like you said, a different demeanor. I mean, I think you can tell in someone's body language a difference between like fear and, I don't want to say depressed. I don't want to label someone with that I don't know, but there was just something different. And
they didn't have the support system,
right?
That, we're not happy in this journey. We have scary, scary days, and need lots of prayers for our baby. But I think it's because, honestly, the support of my husband, and
right.
Hopefully vice versa.
I said right, like, like, yeah, it's me.
You are the rock. But
I didn't mean for it to come off that way.
I said that the other day. I was like, you are my rock. And very sweetly you said, I think it's the other way around. But we're strong for each other, and we have each other to go through these hard times. And I think that makes a difference.
And I want to say, we've talked about that on previous episodes as well, that there are times in our marriage that, yeah, we do have to lean on each other, where when one of us is going through a more tough time, that's where the other picks up slack and does things. And I think that's what we were probably seeing in the little bit of time that we saw this couple. And, we're not trying to put them down or anything, but it appeared that they were both just down. And in times like this, in times where you face adversity, that may happen, but hopefully you've built the foundation and your strengths together, where one of you is going to be a little bit stronger than the other and is going to be able to lift you up and carry you through. And then that person's going to get tired at some point, and now it's the other person's turn. And you have to kind of do that back and forth. And so, I would call on the guys a lot in this scenario to say, I don't want the guys to ever feel like they can't show emotion or be down or anything like that. But I think as husbands, it's part of our duty to be strong for our wives. And I think if we can do that even for a little while, that might help them get through something so that then we can have our turn. Especially in a situation where it's really truly affecting both of us exactly the same. That might be where we just have to step up a little bit and push through for couple hours, couple days, until they can come up and then take turns with us. And maybe that's the other way around in your relationship, and that's okay. But I think that, it can go back and forth, and that way no one's just, you're not both down all the time. Because if you're both down,
you pull each
who's
other.
going to pick the other person up?
Yeah, we have to carry each other. And I think that's why, like Thomas said, insert your hard. We're saying the word NICU right now, as that's our storm that we're weathering in this season. But it could be anything.
Yeah. And so we want to get into some practical things here that we think can help you out. But something that was really kind of on our hearts to mention in this is, you don't know when the next storm is coming. And we say when there because the next storm is coming. So you don't know when the next storm is coming, but it's not too late if you start today to work on your marriage and build that foundation. It's not too late if you start today. If you make that choice not to start today, tomorrow could be too late. And so you can't let another day go past that you don't start on this. Wherever you're at, start on that thing, and figure out the area in your relationship that it is, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. But you don't know when the next storm is coming, but it's not too late if you start today.
Yeah, and so we're going to talk about how to start today, but I just want to say something that was on my heart. Like, if you don't miss your spouse, you need to spend more time with them. And that will help you have a foundation or build a foundation or maintain a foundation. Because before our baby Jordan was born, I was on full-time bed rest at the hospital. And so I was away from Thomas and my family for just over 2 weeks.
A little over 2 weeks.
And in that season, you know, we missed each other and we would tell each other that. And I think that's probably expected of, you know, if your spouse is traveling or you're apart, you can say, I miss you. But now that I'm back home, my days look like, you know, I go to the NICU and then I'm home for dinner and bedtime with our other kids and go back to the NICU. And that's like my full-time job right now with a little bit of remote work in there and everything. But the other day, Thomas called me while I was at the hospital and he said, I miss you. And I was like, oh, I miss you too. And we are back living in, you know, under the same roof, in the same bed and all that. But that was kind of the like, wow, are other couples missing each other?
And I think that that's a good sign if you can think about that statement, like, do I miss my spouse when they're gone? And if you really can't say like, absolutely, yes, like whether it's an hour a day or, you know, a work day or whatever, then I think that's a red flag for you to say like, wow, I'm not putting the work in on my marriage right now. Because if I was, and we were putting that work and spending that time together and doing the things we needed to do and growing together, then I wouldn't feel like a piece of me was missing when they were gone. Like for me, when you're gone, I mean, you're gone at the NICU right now, and it's really the same amount of time that you'd be at work for the day. Like it's really no different. But either way, I work from home, and so, you know, when I'm here at home, it's sometimes hard for me to just not be distracted. And, you know, so I just get thinking, and it's like, you know, I feel like something's missing. We've said this on previous episodes before that we've historically worked our entire careers together up until the last 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. And so for me, like when we're not together all the time, it feels like a part of my body is missing. Like you chopped off my arm and took it with you to work. Like, so, you know, something like that. So yeah, it's, if you're not having that feeling, or at least a piece of that feeling, then I think you need to take that as a red flag and start putting in some more work. So
that's why it doesn't matter. Like I said, if you've been married for a short amount of time, a medium amount of time, or a long time, like Thomas said, it's not too late if you start today. And the first question I would, you know, kind of evaluate is, do you miss your spouse? And if not, then you need to spend more time with them. Yeah. And we're going to talk about ways to do that.
Yeah. So basically the big takeaway from this episode is going to be to invest in your marriage. And there's going to be some ways that examples we're going to give you to do that. That's going to be your kind of practical tips that you'll get out of this. But the theme of this is just invest in your marriage. And first, there's a few free or inexpensive ways that you can do that. You can read a book together. So find a book and that both of you might be interested in, or
an audiobook.
That's how we do it. Yeah. You know, and figure out what works for you as a couple, because each person's going to be a little different. But you could read a book together and discuss it as you go. Don't just read the book and then never talk about it, but discussing it is going to be the key. If you need a place to start, go to marriagepuzzle.com/books. We've got a list of books that we've really enjoyed that have helped our marriage. Those could be some good places to start.
And when we say read a book together, I mean, if someone told me that early on in our marriage, I'd be like, boring. Are we going to read like out loud to one another? Because we did try that.
We did try that.
And that might work for you, but it didn't work for us. So when we say read a book together, like you said, we've done an audiobook while we're in the car together, or if you're separate, like I like a paper book to see, you know, to read in my hands, and Thomas prefers audio. So we can still read a book together by our own, ways of reading a chapter and then coming together and discussing that. And that's like, so just, I didn't want that to be like, that's story time, before bed.
Yeah.
It doesn't do what works for your marriage, but you can still accomplish it together and have something to discuss in your preferred method.
Yeah. Read a book together, but discuss it. That's the most important part of reading the book together. You could listen to an amazing podcast like this one that you're listening to right now.
Again, together at the same time or separately on your own time, but you're still listening to the same things.
Sure. And I say that about our podcast in jest. We obviously are a little biased, but we've had plenty of guests on our podcast of other great people in the marriage community. Go scroll through and see wherever you see it says special guest, and go check out someone else's podcast too. Maybe they have a different niche than us that fits the area in your life that you need help the most in right now. But find something and do it together. Essentially, we're talking about finding a way to learn something together about your marriage and grow closer together. And then the last one, I have a little exercise that I want to give to you, and this is something that is practical. You can write down, and you can work on this with your spouse. It, should be like overall the exercise should be about 5 minutes, but the discussion that will come from it hopefully will go a lot farther. And so essentially what I want you to do is each of you grab some paper, and we're going to talk about 3 areas. And these are the 3 areas that we like to focus on our podcast as much as possible in our marriage coaching. But we're going to talk about money, sex, and communication. And so I want you to just write each of those on a piece of paper. So you write one, I would write them, Julie would write them in our example. And then I want you to give each one a score from 1 to 10, 1 being the least, 10 being the most, as to how strong that area of your relationship is. And you're each going to do these scores privately, and then you're going to talk about them. So if we were doing money, I would write my score down on a scale of 1 to 10. Julie would write her score down on 1 to 10. We do the same for sex. We do the same for communication. Then we're going to sit down at the table and say, okay, what did you score for this? I scored a 8. Oh, you scored a 2? Mm-hmm. Wow, we are definitely not on the same page there. Right. Let's talk about why. And then that opens the door for some of those things to come out, for that spouse who does write the 2 on something, to say, yeah, I feel like we're not on the same page here, or whatever. And it really just can open the door to a calm discussion about it, rather than possibly the constant fights you might be having around that scenario that you can't realize because it's just ticky-tack little stuff that comes up.
Right.
So those are just a few things. Utilize that exercise. But additionally, there are some other ways those are the free and inexpensive ways, but you can also invest more on a higher monetary level, to kind of put more skin in the game in your marriage. And, I think doing some free things first are fine to kind of dip your toes in the water and test this out and, make sure you're both on the same page. But I think ultimately you need to kind of put your money where your mouth is. And if you're not willing to put the skin in the game, then I don't know how invested you truly are in your marriage. And that's hard to say. I don't want to challenge anyone too directly and make you feel bad, but I kind of do. Like, I kind of want you to feel like, if you're not putting the money in it, do you really care enough about it? I mean, if my kids need something, I'm going to go buy them what they need. Like, I'll sacrifice something else. But you should feel the same way about your marriage, and that should be kind of the number one thing on your list, whether you have kids or not. Your marriage should be the top thing going on, one of the top things that you're spending money on, to make sure that you stay on the same page. And that can get a little convoluted, so be careful with that. But
well, yeah, I mean, I think anybody can float by in their marriage, and a lot of people do. But if you're going to build and maintain that marriage foundation, then your marriage needs to be in your budget.
Yeah, totally.
That's basically what it is. And so ways to invest in your marriage, it's both time and money. The number one answer is date nights. And I think a lot of couples know that, but we're really big on saying, like, don't just go out to dinner with your spouse because you don't want to cook dinner.
Right.
Like, I don't want to cook dinner at home, so we're going to go out to eat.
Right. Date night's an event, not like a to-do list check item.
Yeah, it has to be intentional.
Yeah.
With conversation or fun activity to keep growing and having fun and building that foundation. So date nights would be on the list. You could attend a workshop in your area or online. It's something that we're working on, trying to do for Marriage Puzzle. But there's lots of marriage conferences and things that you can do together, or marriage coaching. You can do that online now. It's how we do ours. And or something that we also threw on the list was like a road trip. We talked about that last week of how that was so cool for our marriage to get away. So if gas prices are too high right now, but get away somewhere, even if that's locally.
Yeah, staycation.
Something like you might be listening and you just need that reset button. And so no matter what stage of marriage you're in, I would challenge you just to ask yourself together with your spouse, like, what are your marriage rhythms going to be?
Right.
What are you going to do weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually to build and maintain a foundation for your marriage? Because Thomas and I could tell you all the things that we do, weekly date nights and then monthly activities, like a more fun, bigger date. Quarterly, we get away for a night or a weekend, just the two of us, and annually is more like vacation. But you have to figure out what your marriage rhythm's going to be. So it could be, some of this list from the free and stuff you need a budget for, but that's what I would write down as well, is what are we going to do weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually to keep this foundation to be able to weather the storms that come at us in life.
Absolutely. So invest in your marriage. Make sure that you're building your foundation now, because like we said earlier, you don't know when the next storm is coming, but it's not too late if you start today. So make sure that you come out of this episode and start something today, because you'll be stronger from it to help get you through that next thing that comes. But thank you so much for joining us on this episode. This was a lot of fun for us to talk about, and it can definitely be a tough subject, and we're going through some adversity with this right now, but it excites us to know that we've put in the work on the front end, and it excites us to know where other couples can strengthen their marriage and get there as well. So if you're not following us on social media, make sure you go check us out at Marriage Puzzle on Instagram and Facebook, and check out our website, marriagepuzzle.com. You can schedule a discovery call with us there about marriage coaching and see how we can help you in that regard. And as always, we look forward to you joining us next week. We're together. We'll work on marriage, one puzzle piece at a time. See you later.
See you next week.